Everyone, Mr. Barberg here. I've had some requests to keep reading our book from the Chronicles of Narnia series, The Silver Chair, and I'm going to pick it up at chapter 4, where we left off, A Parliament of Owls. It's a very funny thing that the sleepier you are, the longer you take about getting to bed, especially if you're lucky enough to have a fire in your room. Jill felt she couldn't even start undressing unless she sat down in front of the fire for a bit first. And once she had sat down, she didn't want to get up again. She had already said to herself about 5 times, "Oh, I must go to bed," when she was startled by a tap at the window. She got up, pulled the curtain, and at first saw nothing but darkness. Then she jumped and started backward, for something very large had dashed itself against the window, giving a sharp tap on the glass as it did so. A very unpleasant idea came into her head. Suppose they have giant moths in this country? Oh! But then the thing came back, and this time she was almost sure she saw a beak. And that beak had made the tapping noise. "It's some huge bird," thought Jill. "Could it be an eagle?" She didn't very much want a visit even from an eagle, but she opened the window and looked out. Instantly, with a great whirring noise, the creature alighted on the window-sill and stood there, filling up the whole window, so that Jill had to step back to make room for it. It was the owl. "Hush, hush! To-woo, to-woo!" said the owl. "Don't make a noise. Now are you two really in earnest about what you've got to do?" "About the lost prince, you mean?" said Jill. Yes, we've got to be." For now she remembered the lion's voice and face, which she had nearly forgotten during the feasting and storytelling in the hall. "Good," said the owl. "There's no time to waste. You must get away from here at once. I'll go and wake the other human. Then I'll come back for you. You'd better change those court clothes and put on something you can travel in. I'll be back in 2-2s. To-woo!" Without waiting for an answer, he was gone. If Jill had been more used to adventures, she might have doubted the owl's word, but this never occurred to her, and in the exciting idea of a midnight escape, she forgot her sleepiness. She changed back into a sweater and shorts. There was a guide's knife on the belt of the shorts, which might come in useful, and added a few of the things that had been left in the room for her by the girl with the willowy hair. She chose a short cloak that came down to her knees and had a hood, just the thing if it rained, she thought, a few handkerchiefs and a comb, and then she sat down and waited. She was getting sleepy again when the owl returned. "Now we're ready," it said. "You'd better lead the way," said Jill. "I don't know all these passages yet." "Too-woo!" said the owl. "We're not going through the castle. That would never do. You must ride on me. We shall fly." "Oh," said Jill, and stood with her mouth open, not much liking the idea. "Shan't I be far too heavy for you?" "To-woo, to-woo! Don't be a fool. I've already carried the other one. Now, but we'll put out the lamp first." As soon as the lamp was out, the bit of night which you saw through the window looked less dark, no longer black, but gray. The owl stood on the window-sill, with his back to the room, and raised its wings. Jill had to climb onto his short, fat body and get her knees under the wings and grip tight. The feathers felt beautifully warm and soft, but there was nothing to hold on by. "I wonder how Scrub liked his ride," thought Jill. And just as she was thinking this, with a horrid plunge, they had left the window-sill, and the wings were making a flurry around her ears, and the night air, rather cool and damp, was flying in her face. It was much lighter than she had expected, and though the sky was overcast, one patch of watery silver showed where the moon was hiding above the clouds. The fields beneath her looked gray and the trees black, and there was a certain amount of wind, a hushing, ruffling sort of wind, which meant that rain was coming soon. The owl wheeled around so that the castle was now ahead of them. Very few of the windows showed lights. They flew right over it, northward, crossing the river. The air grew colder, and Jill thought she could see a white reflection of the owl on the water beneath her. But soon they were on the north bank of the river, flying above wooded country. The owl snapped at something which Jill couldn't see. "Oh, don't, please," said Jill. "Don't jerk like that. You nearly threw me off." "I beg your pardon," said the owl. "I was just nabbing a bat. There's nothing so sustaining in a small way as a nice, plump little bat. Shall I catch you one?" "No, thanks," said Jill with a shudder. He was flying a little lower now, and a large, black-looking object was looming up toward them. Jill had just time to see that it was a tower, a partly ruinous tower with a lot of ivy on it. She thought, when she found herself ducking to avoid the archway of a window, as the owl squeezed with her through the ivied, cobwebby opening out of the fresh grey night into a dark place inside the top of the tower. It was rather fusty inside, and the moment she slipped off the owl's back, she knew, as one usually does somehow, that it was quite crowded. And when voices began saying out of the darkness from every direction, "To-woo! To-woo!" she knew it was crowded with owls. She was rather relieved when a very different voice said, "Is that you, Pole?" "Is that you, Scrub?" said Jill. "Now," said Glimfeather, "I think we're all here. Let us hold a parliament of owls. To-woo, to-woo, too true for you. That's the right thing to do," said the several voices. "Half a moment," said Scrub's voice. "There's something I want to say first." "Do, do, do," said the owls, and Jill said, "Fire ahead." "I suppose all you chaps, owls I mean," said Scrub, "I suppose you all know that King Caspian X, in his young days, sailed to the eastern end of the world. Well, I was with him on that journey, with him and Reepicheep the mouse and the Lord Drinian and all of them. I know it sounds hard to believe, but people don't grow older in our world at the same speed as they do in yours. And what I want to say is this, that I'm the king's man, and if this parliament of owls is any sort of plot against the king, I'm having nothing to do with it." "Too-woo, too, we're all the king's owls, too," said the owls. "What's it all about, then?" said Scrub. "It's only this," said Glimfeather, "that if the Lord Regent, the dwarf Trumpkin, hears that you are going to look for the lost prince, he won't let you start. He'd keep you under lock and key sooner." "Great Scott," said Scrub, "you don't mean that Trumpkin's a traitor? I used to hear a lot about him in the old days at sea. Caspian, the king, I mean. Trusted him absolutely." "Oh, no," said the voice. "Trumpkin's no traitor, but more than 30 champions, knights, centaurs, good giants, and all sorts, have at one time or another set out to look for the lost prince, and none of them have ever come back. And at last the king said he was not going to have all the bravest Narnians destroyed in the search for his son, and now nobody is allowed to go." "But surely he'd let us go," said Scrub, "when he knew who I was and who had sent me. Sent both of us," put in Jill. "Yes," said Glimfeather, "I think very likely he would. But the king's away, and Trumpkin will stick to the rules. He's as true as steel, but he's deaf as a post and very peppery. You could never make him see that this might be the time for making an exception to the rule. You might think he'd take some notice of us, because we're owls, and everyone knows how wise owls are," said someone else. "But he's so old now, he'd only say, 'You're a mere chick. I remember you when you were an egg. Don't come trying to teach me, sir, crabs and crumpets.'" This owl imitated Trumpkin's voice rather well, and there were sounds of owlish laughter all around. The children began to see that the Narnians all felt about Trumpkin as people feel at school about some crusty old teacher, whom everyone is a little afraid of, and everyone makes fun of, and nobody really dislikes. "How long is the king going to be away?" asked Scrub. "If only we knew," said Glimfeather. "You see, there has been a rumor lately that Aslan himself has been seen in the islands, in Terabithia, I think it was, and the king said he would make one more attempt before he died to see Aslan's face again, and ask his advice about who it is to be king after him. But we're all afraid of that. We're all afraid that if he doesn't meet Aslan in Terabithia, he'll go on east to the Seven Isles and Lone Islands, and on and on. He never talks about it, but we all know he has never forgotten that voyage to the world's end. I'm sure in his heart of hearts he wants to go there again." "Then there's no good waiting for him to come back," said Jill. "No good," said the owl. "Oh, what to do! If only you two had known and spoken to him at once. He'd have arranged everything, probably given you an army to go with you in search of the prince." Jill kept quiet at this, and hoped Scrub would be sporting enough not to tell the owls why this had happened. He was, or very nearly that is, he only muttered under his breath, "Well, it wasn't my fault," before saying it out loud. "Very well. We'll have to manage without it. But there's just one more thing I want to know. If this Owl's Parliament, as you call it, is all fair and above board and means no mischief, then why does it have to be so jolly secret? Meeting in a ruin, in the dead of night and all that." "To-woo, to-woo," hooted several owls. "Where should we meet? When would anyone want to meet except at night?" "You see," explained Glimfeather, "most of the creatures in Narnia have such unnatural habits. They do things by day in broad blazing sunlight, when everyone ought to be asleep, and as a result, at night they're so blind and stupid that you can't get a word out of them. So we owls have got into the habit of meeting in sensible hours, on our own, when we want to talk about things." "I see," said Scrub. "Well now, let's get on. Tell us about this lost prince." Then an old owl, not Glimfeather, related the story. We'll stop there. We'll pick it up next time. See you soon.